today we're going to make a red bean and tomato stew. All we need really is about a spoonful, so I'm just going to put some in the wooden spoon there and pop it in there. Here's some onion I've already chopped. If you've never chopped an onion before, please see our YouTube video on how to safely chop an onion. Once you've got the oil heating, if you take a small bit of onion, drop it into the oil, and if you stay there, James, with the camera, so you can see as it's sizzling, that tells us the oil is the perfect temperature for adding the onions. So I'm just going to add the rest of the chopped onion. This is just an ordinary cooking onion, bought loose from the supermarket. That's the cheapest way to do it. I'm just using a wooden spoon because it doesn't scratch my pan. And I'm going to give it a nice stir, put the lid on, turn it down slightly, depends on what you're using, whether you get gas or electricity. We don't want to leave it on a high heat because otherwise the onion will burn. If it burns, it goes a bit sort of strong tasting. So I'm just going to turn that down. I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. Right, the next step is to chop the garlic. I've got a clove of garlic here. So fresh garlic you can buy as a bulb, and it will split in easily into cloves, so we just need one for this recipe. I'm going to use a similar method to what I did for chopping the onion. Make sure I keep my fingers well away from the blade of the knife. The first thing I'll do is chop the ends off, and that's going to help me peel off all that. That's come off nice and easily, and you can save those for making some stock later on, which I'll talk about in one of my other videos. Have a nice little chop there, and that's all we need to do. So that's our garlic ready to add to the onion. Right, we're ready now to add the garlic. The onions had 5 minutes on a low simmer, sizzling away gently. And in goes the garlic. The onion should be soft but not particularly brown. If it has gone a bit brown, that's no worry at all. You just don't want it black, otherwise you get a bitter taste. And I'm just going to stir that in, and we'll set the timer again for another 5 minutes. So, as you can see, the garlic and the onion are simmered nicely. They start to change colour and go a little bit, people call it translucent, sort of a bit clearer, but they haven't gone brown, nothing's burnt, and they're nicely cooked through. Here I have some chilli powder. This is a hot chilli. You can obviously have slightly milder chilli if you want to. I'm going to put about a teaspoon in there. And it's still sizzling away, but you can see it's changed colour there. And we've got a nice chilli, oniony sort of aroma going on. This is an ordinary tin of red kidney beans. This was very, very cheap from Tesco's, doesn't cost a lot. I've opened it with an ordinary tin opener. I'm being careful because that edge can get a bit sharp. Just washed a mug. And I don't want the liquid that the beans are in, the salt water, so I'm just going to drain it if I turn it around, so hopefully James can capture this with the camera angle. So I'm using the lid to just stop all the beans falling in, and I'm draining out most of the juice. Doesn't matter if there's a little bit left in here, it's fine, we've already got rid of most of it. And the whole of that tin of beans is going to go in. There's one that gets stuck. And we'll give that a good stir around. It's starting to look pretty. Now the next ingredient is either a tin of tomatoes, as it says in the recipe, or you can actually just use tomato puree, which I've got. Now the tomato puree is much stronger, so you certainly wouldn't want the whole jar. I'm just going to put about 4 teaspoons of that in, but if you are using a tin of tomatoes, you will want the whole tin. Yeah, that should be plenty tomato enough in there. Put those out of the way. Because I've used tomato puree rather than a whole tin of tomatoes, I am going to need some liquid, however. So I've just put some tap water into the bean tin, and I'm going to add, not quite a complete, probably about half. And then Mix that all round. Nice and tomatoey. We've got the beans, we've got the onions and the garlic and the tomato all going on. And we need to bring that to the boil, so I'm going to turn this up. Various options you can do for the red bean stew. You can put in other vegetables as well. Here I've got half a sweet potato. This one I actually pre-baked in our air fryer for about 160 degrees for about 30 minutes. And I'm just going to peel the skin off. When you pre-bake them, the skin comes away really easily. That skin could be used for our stock making, so again I won't throw it away. Just put it on one side. And I'm just going to dice that up. And the other option is some red pepper. You can either add this at the frying stage or you can add it later at the boiling stage. There's no right and wrong about chopping a pepper, but my preferred method is to chop the end off first. So there's the end of the pepper. Then inside you've got the seeds. I'm just going to chop down the sides, take these clean off, leaving the seeds intact. And then last of all, that one's off there. Now, because I don't like to waste anything, that part of the pepper's still good. So keeping the knife well away from my fingers, I'm just going to slice those end bits off there. So we waste very little, and that can be used in our stock as well. And I'm going to roughly chop the pepper into bite-sized pieces. Most of our recipes are vegetarian, but if you are a meat eater at this stage, you could open a tin of chopped ham and pork, or any cooked meat and add it in, and that would, or even some cooked sausage or some salami, anything like that. You could add that in at this stage. If you like those flavours and you want those to add those in with the stew. And they're all quite inexpensive things to do. I'm going in with the red pepper, and at this stage if you're adding any chopped meat, cooked meat, that's fine, just add that in as well. We set the time for 20 minutes, so these vegetables here will have about 15 minutes left. And that should all be cooked through nicely. So, the red bean stews have 20 minutes now, and as you can see, it's looking pretty good. Just get the wooden spoon, give it a bit of a stir. It hasn't stuck to the bottom, and that's basically because there isn't anything thickening it. When you add the thickener and carry on cooking, that's when it can start. So, if we're going to serve this with the flatbreads or the rice, we'll show the flatbreads in another video, then that's fine as it is, just to be eaten. Just need a bit of seasoning. So I'm going to put some black pepper, just to taste. I quite like black pepper, so I'm going to put plenty in there. Now, this is some sea salt. If I'm not going to thicken it, I'll just add some sea salt ready to go. However, James and I are going to try this without any flatbread, so really we're going to need a little bit of a thickener. I'm going to use some gravy granules. I'm a celiac, so I have free from, but you can use any gravy granules. Because these already have salt in them, I'm definitely going to taste it before I add any extra salt. So I think about 3 teaspoons in there. And you might be able to just see that's thick.